that breakfast right here, right now. It is the Remix Morning Show, and I go by the name of the Ear Doctor, and I like to introduce y'all to your host today. First, we got Dr. Jared Ball. Next, we got Kalaji Jama Chama. And burning down Kim Brown. And no other than Jackie Lukman. Let's go.
I love it. Very egalitarian with the echo. Appreciate it.
I hate the echo personally, but
I love the echo.
What?
It reminds me of that Renegade. I don't know.
That's
man.
it.
You know what I'm saying? Riot starter, rebellions in season. What's good?
The Contra-African, the Contrafrican.
Hey man, you know what we do. You know what we do around here.
Good morning, Black people.
What's happening?
Well, revolutionary greetings, all my Africans of all different shades, and even the Contra-African in the group.
Okay. As long as y'all know.
What about us with proclivities,
Jacqueline? Oh, that's right. And all of y'all,
Ricky's right.
All the proclivities too. All of them.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Right.
We overcompensated this morning. Everybody showed up today. Yesterday it was nobody. Today it's everybody. Except for Kamal. I was going to say, except for Kamal.
We was in support of our Haitian workers. You know what I'm saying? Yesterday, by default. You know what I mean? So we here now. We here. We protested our own platform.
Yes. Good morning to everybody born in 1978 in the class of 1978. Welcome.
70.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Peace to those born in 1970. I know y'all heavenly. Take that. Yeah, y'all got nervous on that.
All right, 71 gets the job done. How about that? How about that one? Since if we
MCs be jocking my style. Be jocking my style.
It is true. I used to say we came from the no biting era, and apparently
y'all been biting ever since.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's over. Been biting ever since.
Totally biting. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Y'all been biting so much. Y'all like should call yourselves Joe Biting. Speaking of Joe Biden,
wow.
What's up? Come on.
There he is.
I just walked in on the wackest joke I've ever heard in my life.
You sure did. Definitely did.
I'm actually sorry about that.
I'm gonna take another week off. I think right now. After that.
Oh dear.
Brooklyn steps in the room. Hey,
how y'all feeling? You know what I'm saying? Y'all miss me? I can't wait. The upcoming anniversary show. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Upcoming anniversary.
The upcoming.
You talking about next year?
That's like sleepy time on
That's Brooklyn. That is Brooklyn for you.
But I heard we got a great debate.
Show up loud and late.
Great Carr and my man Jared. A great debate coming up. That's gonna be hot. I'm waiting for it.
Started already.
Please don't get me started on that thing.
See that's why when y'all be asking about Renegade culture, we actually be recording, but Kamal's late every week, so we it just never happens. So one day he gonna make a mistake and we'll be on time.
Let me get my schedules.
No doubt. Yeah.
But I have to say, the Africana verses delivered as expected.
Oh, the Africana verses.
The best verses of the whole verses season was Ball versus Carr, Africana versus Africana, HU versus Morgan State. I loved every second of it.
True.
When he came with Trotsky getting stabbed in the eye, I was like, I think I drank too much. I just how old is this wine? Did I really just hear him say that? Like, what?
Jared.
I just gotta say this right here, man. You know what I'm saying? Being a up close and personal witness to that debacle the other day. You know what I'm saying? From Jared's as long as you ain't telling nobody to shut up. You know what I'm saying?
Jared had smoked the whole time. Jared was smoking the whole time.
To Greg Carr, like, what they going in front of a judge for? I'm like, yo, I'm about to go smoke me a drink right about now. I think it was definitely a great experience. I think that both of you guys handled your business in the direction that y'all were going in my opinion. And I think that it was important. We got a whole lot of emails and text messages and all that just on different views and looking at it from different angles. So I think that dialogue is definitely necessary with all that we do, and we just can't get caught up in our own systems of belief, regardless of how hardcore we rock on it. It was difficult for me trying to be a moderator because of the fact that I'm trying to stay in that particular lane without jumping in. I felt like, you remember wrestling, how they have the guest referees and shit? That's wrestlers and shit. Then they jump in, they start fighting too. That's how I felt. Shit,
but Kamau, you actually did a great job.
Thank you.
You know, trying to keep it on track.
You just said Kamau.
She meant
I'm sorry, Kalanji, the other K, the dark.
And Kamau was running with it. He was happy to take credit. He was like, "Yes, I did great."
True. There's dark chocolate
that was
K
wonderful.
and milk chocolate K, I guess.
Thank you.
I don't know.
White chocolate. But anyway, cool.
I don't know about milk.
It's horrible. It's horrible. K's in the building.
Coffee and white shirts around here.
Any day I can make Jared spit his drink out in laughter.
Good day.
It's a good day.
Gotta be careful.
You know, yeah. No, but I mean,
you
did a good job. But you did a good job trying to like keep that thing on track. But I think what I saw was like an older generation of folks, and I'm not even going to blame it on academia, because I don't think it's an academia thing as much as it looks to me like what I've read and understand about the rift between the civil rights movement and the Black Power movement. I think we're seeing it like all over again. Like we're seeing these older kind of established folks like, look, we got to work within the system to change it, and how are we going to change it unless we do that? And then these younger folks like, fuck that. We're going to do our own thing. We have to do something more radical. But the interesting thing is the older generation is not paying attention to the younger folks saying, we're going to build our own thing, even in regard to electoral politics. And I think that's the thing that I think Carl was missing. And it kind of ticked me off how, and I think a lot of other folks have been, really rubbed the wrong way by younger 2-3 generations of Black radicals have said, no, we're not going to vote for the Democrats just because they're not Republicans. We're going to build our own parties. And then they don't get support from the older Greg Carrs and whatnot of the world in their parties. And I feel like I kind of saw some of that. And it was just like, wow, this is like, the established Black folks, and this is the civil rights and the Black Power movement fight all over again. And am I the only one who saw that? I'm just wondering.
I mean, I'm just saying, I think some of the arguments that Dr. Carr was making, especially the one about where he said that for people who say that there's no difference between the Democrat Party and the Republican Party, those people don't know what they're talking about. Sir, do you see what's happening in Ukraine? Do you see what's happening in democratically led cities across this country? Both parties beat the drumbeat of militarization and of increased police funding. So those are very important similarities that the parties hold that directly impact us. So I definitely think Dr. Carr is mistaken when he talks about there are fundamental differences between both parties. I as a 43-year-old person don't really see it. And I've been participating in electoral politics since I was 18. And here I am now, like a pox on both of these houses. And it doesn't serve us to pledge allegiance to one particular party when that party is not serving our needs at all.
I would only jump in that I wasn't so much mad at Dr. Carr's argument as in some practical stuff that you have to do. This is the system. But I think that way of thinking without in as you're doing that, creating alternatives, doing something different leads to 40 years of all you're doing is bargaining with Democrats. If you just take this practical approach to politics and say this is going to make something 4 degrees better than what it would have been if it was a right-wing Republican, but you do nothing except claim to understand the radical history or claim that we have to create these alternatives or claim we have to do something different. If you give lip service to it and do nothing, then all you're doing is perpetuating the lesser of two evils arguments, no matter what you say your ideology is, right? So, and I think that's, for me, that's the box that shows so many people. and some of it I think is an ideological thing, not even so much sometimes an age thing. I think that's the ideological box that people lock themselves into, is that they want to play on a certain playground, and they really don't have any faith that alternatives can be had or made, and they put no work into making those alternatives. In fact, they do exactly what Dr. Ball was saying, was that they kind of cut out something left of them, and they take up the left space as the most left you can go. And obviously there are alternatives to suggesting that the only work to do is to convince Democrats to do ABC for us, which make marginal differences in our lives.
I think as freedom fighters, we have to remember that all politics are local. So while I'm against electoral politics on a national level, for obvious reasons, on a local level, I would agree with Carl on, things like city council. You know what I'm saying? We need certain permits. It's much easier for me to call a member of an organization, just like, these white boys would do in any other ethnic group, and not have to go through the red tape. If I could just say, look, Jackie, we need a zoning permit over here at such and such, such and such. Okay, boom, let me push my buttons. Let me make things happen. That's how politics work. Is that, we're not confused into thinking that that is some fair and balanced system. So if we can, on a local level, make the moves that we need to make and impact, everything from the school board to, things that we believe in and we know that we can move, then I'm for that argument. But again, on a national level, of course, we know the history, we know how elections are dealt with, we know the history of the Electoral College, so on and so forth. On the flip side, we as organizers also have to provide practical alternatives and solutions. The one thing that I did like about the situation the other day was there were attempts and efforts to provide alternatives. Because oftentimes we have empty arguments. We have our ancestors died for the right to vote. And then we have the F the system, we just need to abolish it. Great. But in the interim, what do we do? So we have to be practical because of the fact that we're dealing with our people. And we got to be able to work on points of unity because of the fact that everyone that votes Democrat or Republican may not necessarily be the enemy. They might be confused. But can you win them over? And that's when we go to Kwame Ture and we say, okay, boom, there are people, we're going to give them a chance. They mess up one time, we're going to give them a chance again. Third time, we're going to offer. So we just can't be quick to just come with the guillotine like, yeah. You know what I'm saying? We got to say, okay, boom. And in that case, we look at George Jackson and Malcolm X, El-Hajj Malik Shabazz. If El-Hajj Malik Shabazz was alive today, as Detroit read, he would have never made it to Malcolm X because of the fact that we wouldn't even give him the opportunity.
Well, I'm just glad that we were able to do it. I'm glad our platform hosted it. I'm glad that Dr. Carr agreed to do it and that we got to get into it a little bit. And I'm glad, I appreciate people watching it. I appreciate the responses that I've gotten, some of the criticisms, etc. And to Anthony's point in the chat, I did wear my Muhammad Ali shirt on purpose. And
the shade.
And I did. It wasn't just shade, but honestly, it wasn't just shade. It was really to keep me focused. It was about focus because there were usually my problem in these kinds of debates, aside from losing my temper, is getting invited down all of those tributaries where there's a lot of things I think Dr. Carr said that I would want to disagree with. But if you pick up on every one of them, then I would lose sight of the broader argument. And so I was just trying to use that to stay focused. And I see ear doctors coming up. So as a transition, I'll just say, and I also was part of my sort of pre-fight ritual going back to grad school and defending my thesis and my dissertation and even my A exams. Was to listen to a lot of Jay-Z, a lot of Black Album and earlier Jay-Z, which I admit is my contradiction, and specifically Brooklyn Finest, that track right there. So I listened to that right
Black
up
Republican.
No, because like short sleeves, I bear arms. That's where I was.
Okay.
That was
arms in the tree line streets. What?
There's arms in these tree lines. So no, seriously. So anyway, that and I do like the Africana verses. I think we should rock with that. We should give Kim her credit, patent that, and have another one, and move on with that as a program.
Oh yeah, we got some things lined up already. Y'all got me hyped the other day. Don't get it twisted. I'm running through the industry looking for beef right now, so it's all good.
All right, DK.
Okay. I heard Adolph Reed responded to us on something behind a paywall. So I mean, I heard I haven't been able to hear it because apparently it's behind a Patreon paywall, but apparently he saw the clip of Kim and me talking about him. I think that's what it is. But so maybe he'll come on here. I don't know.
That should be the next one. That should because
basically of angry old black folks. Jesus.
So is it just Jared versus?
That's what I was gonna say. I don't want it to be. I don't want, but
nah, man.
Because I think Adolph Reed is a radical. There's a lot of things he says. Like he makes good points. Obviously has a semi-good analysis. So I said semi-good. But I mean, I think in the end, he's a radical integrationist. And I think he thinks the white working class somehow is going to give up their racism and position. And it's our job to win them over and give up all this solidarity, nationalism stuff. So that's not an argument I mess with. So
win them over.
Lisa, look at what Lisa's saying in the chat. He talked big doo-doo. What? But seriously, I don't want it to be me, but in all seriousness, I do think it's a little bit trifling that you canceled the interview with me and then talk about us on another platform. I think that's a little
behind
bit
the paywall. That
behind the paywall too. That's a little bit anyway. But it's all good.
Not access this. It's not accessible to everybody.
I'm about to take a note from this book. You know what I'm saying? Shit, you gotta pay for this ass whooping I'm giving out these days.
Fair enough. Speaking of paying for ass whoopings, Ear Doctor's ready to jump back up in here.
God.
Does he pay to give them or to get them?
I'm confused about that.
I don't know. You told us about his fight record. I'm not sure.
I'm so.
Introduce myself.
My name is Hove. My name is
Please,
JB.
relax. Ear Doctor's in the building. All right. So what we gonna do right now is we gonna go to the weather report. Since we didn't get a weather report yesterday, and I was the only one that showed up, we're gonna do it today. So let's get to it.
Remix shade.
All right. What's good, everybody? Welcome out to the Remix Morning Show. I go by the name of the Ear Doctor. In case you didn't know, you do now. Yo, make sure y'all hit that like button, that subscribe button, that notification bell so y'all can know all the dope stuff that's coming out right here on Black Power Media. Also, go to patreon.com and drop some change in the bucket because you know we love it and we do it for y'all. So with that said, let me go ahead and give y'all the weather report right here, right now. I don't know what it was. I was just thinking about, I was talking to somebody the other day and, this young lady was walking down the street. She was like, yo, you got a cigarette? I was like, a cigarette? It's like, nah. She's like, I'm trying to give me a Pope, Newport. So I said, Newport, huh? Let me think about that. What's all the places I could think about with Newport? So first we're going to go to Newport, Rhode Island. That's right. Newport, Rhode Island. They got a high today of 46 degrees. Next, let's take it over to Newport News, Virginia. That's right. Newport News, Virginia. Big up VA. They got a high today of 68 degrees. And next, let's take it over to Newport Beach, California. Today, they got a high of 57 degrees. And next, let's take it to another Newport Knob, New Zealand. I don't know that many people out in New Zealand, but they got a high today of 66. And next, let's go to, y'all ready for this? Newport on Tay, Scotland, United Kingdom. They got a high today of 45 degrees. And last but not least, Newport, Canada, a high today of 14 degrees. It's colder than a white man in Canada. But you know what's cold? I'll tell you what's cold. Since we're talking about Newport, let's talk about Newports. That's right, the cigarette. Newports was launched back in 1957 by the Layla Tobacco Company. Cigarette, it came out and people was just Newport. You remember when Newports was just in magazines? They never even had commercials about Newports. But Newports have been one of the number one killing cigarette smoking is estimated to cause the 480,000 deaths annually. Now that's cold, because ain't nobody really talking about it. They talk about alcohol, they talk about pills, but they don't talk about cigarettes. My pops, he passed away from what was it? Eczema of the lungs. I don't even know how to say the word. But yeah, Newports, they cold as a mug. They've been out killing people for a long time, and that's what it is. Now let's take it back to the Remix Morning Show with our host.
Emphysema, my dude.
Yeah, I was gonna say that would be emphysema, my brother.
Yes.
Emphysema.
My mom also had emphysema. So yeah.
Is COPD the new emphysema? Is that what emphysema is called now? COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease.
I don't know.
Because I don't hear emphysema no more as diagnoses, but I hear COPD as diagnoses. So I don't know if that term has evolved. Ear Doc, is this part of Black history to talk about menthol cigarettes? I'm just curious.
I was wondering.
I think Newport is very much in the Black culture.
And tomorrow's going to talk about Colt 45.
Right.
Hey, Billy
that
D,
first ad was full of white folks. I've never seen a Newport ad with white people. That was the first Newport ad I've ever seen with white people in it.
That was the last one.
That was when
that was the first and last word. There's like Black folks like this. We can make a lot of money off of this.
I smoked Newports back in the day, absolutely, and I'm glad I was able to struggle to quit. And it's still a struggle. 30 years later, I still see somebody opening a new pack of cigarettes, and I'm like,
They got the most nicotine in them.
It's crack, baby. It's that heroin. It's that legal heroin. But here's the thing. Is it an urban legend? Is it a myth that menthol cigarettes are actually more harmful to people? And that's why Black people, I mean, obviously I'm pulling this 100% out of my ass, but is that why Black people have higher instances of lung cancer, especially smokers, because of the preference of menthol cigarettes? Does anybody know the science behind that? Because I think there is some science.
I think if it's going to be anything, I would say some of them flavored blunts at the bodegas. You know what I'm saying? Because peach and tropical guava blunts and shit like that, I just don't see those being healthy in no type of way. You know what I mean? So yeah, and then the beaties they said are like 3 or 4 times worse than cigarettes. So, I used to smoke a lot of beaties back in the day. We had a hemp shop, so
I did too.
Yeah.
Well, that's your weather report for the day. I'll catch y'all next break.
Thank you very much.
Doctor.
That was our brother Willie D. Williams. You know what I'm saying? Talking about Colt 45. We're gonna go ahead and slap the map, and we'll be right back.
Do you all mind if I start us off with a little something real quick, a little something
before you go there? I gotta be petty, Jared, and say I hopped in the chat. Keontae Seeley, I never smoked Black and Milds, and I did not have weed. Go ahead, Jared. I'm sorry, I just need that important announcement.
No, that was important. That was important.
Break that off.
Black and Milds needs its own Black History Month shout out too.
I'm good.
I mean, we could do a whole thing like that. Could be a whole week. Maybe we need to do a segment on this. Things that need to be added, like trifling things that need to be added, like the Cisco era.
I was just about to say Cisco.
You know, that liquid crack bottle, boy, oh boy, oh boy.
What is Wild Horse? With Crazy Horse?
Wild Horse, Crazy Horse, and Wild
Mad Dog
2020.
Yes, Thunderbird.
Yeah. Thunderbird.
Oh, way back. We're way back.
Yeah. No, Thunderbird, boy. That was
Reunited on Ice.
I never
everything nice.
I remember the commercials for that.
Yeah, me too.
Y'all know about Renegade? Jacobot.
Yeah, I know about it. I didn't like it.
Okay.
That must have been what they was drinking in Connecticut, Kalonji, that Reuniti. That sounds like some Connecticut shit.
Don't play, Kim. That's for grown folks. You only 43. You went around.
Night Train.
How about to bust out Ripple? I thought Ripple was
Ripple out on the table.
I went looking for Ripple because of Sanford and Son.
Thank you. I didn't even know Ripple was a real drink. I just thought that was something that was made for TV for Fred Sanford. Ripple was actually a thing, huh?
Yeah, but then they had Shy Ripple, which is pink champagne and champagne and Ripple mix. So you know what I'm saying?
That was real too. Fred, you should talk about that. You got some shampipple.
Only in the hood. I know there's people watching this. People watching this right now. Like, what type of joint? That's 8-ball, man. You don't call it Old English. It's the 8-ball. You know what I mean?
The Cali 8-ball.
We used to call it Old E.
Brooklyn was Old E.
Old E,
man.
Yeah, because in my small crew of degenerates, 8-ball meant something else. So
yeah, that's I was thinking.
Oh yeah, but it's two different 8-balls.
It was that Rick James, boy. That Rick James, boy.
You went on the Ripple, brother.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is Black Power Media. You can learn about
Black Power Media.
All the garbage that you can think of. You can find it right here. Anyway,
so
that news at, man?
Speaking of garbage, because and that's actually probably too harsh a segue because this is actually somewhat funny to me. So one of the things in my public opinion and persuasion class that I've assigned my students to do is each week I want them to watch the Useful Idiots Monday morning show where Katie Halper and Aaron Mate review the weekend news shows. Again, I cannot watch myself the straight CNN, MSNBC, all of that stuff. So I like to see what they say distilled through at least some criticism and humor. But this week, and I had to even, reach out to Katie Halper and Aaron Mate on this one because they said something so egregious and foul that reminded me yet again of why BPM is so important. And I just want to play this little clip right here. This is like this might be the foulest thing ever uttered, even by the white left.
Some of you out there know this. Some of you don't. But he did write Nothing Compares to You.
Talking about Prince.
That's right.
I mean, it's low hanging fruit for Aaron because he's a major Prince person. Obviously, he knew that. But for those of you who don't know that,
another total Prince hit.
Which version do you like more, Sinead or Prince?
I mean, I'll go with Sinead. Why not?
That's
Why
it.
Not? Sinead. Yeah.
That's it. It's over. That was it. It's over.
Stone him.
In the world?
Stone him.
That's when you say. That's when you're supposed to just say, "Shut up,
Stone
you're white."
him.
That's when you just say, "Shut up, you're white," and you go on to the next joint.
I have never advocated censorship or cancellation until now. Aaron
What's the name of that show?
Formerly Aaron, the Aaron of journalism, as I like to try to call him.
And what's his name? So I can say
Aaron Mate.
Oh, sorry, Aaron Mate.
Aaron Mate.
Yeah, okay.
I would never stop laughing.
Do you remember when Amy Goodman let that woman get away with that, and Amy didn't correct it? I was like, "That's shady." Amy Goodman is shady.
She didn't even change her facial expression, and she knew what that man's name was. She knew
he worked with her for a decade. He was up in that for a decade. She let him.
She's like Jay-Z. She's like, "Fuck him. I hate a nigga loving his life." That's what he said.
Now, listen, I like Aaron Mate quite a lot. I respect his work. He's a good dude, but guys, we don't defer to white people's taste in music. Stop it.
and I like Sinead O'Connor. You know what I'm saying? When she was ripping the Pope's picture and all that type stuff. You know what I'm saying? She was down with FTP.
Yeah.
This isn't a comment about Sinead. It's a comment about Aaron Mate's poor judgment and lack of musical knowledge.
Definitely poor judgment.
And
I didn't believe he said that.
How in the world could you fix your face, Mr. Russiagate exposer? You know what I mean? And say something like that. Testified in front of the UN.
That was awfully white of him. Yes.
So now I got to take a diversion also. See, I'm sorry. This is Dr. Jared Ball's fault. So,
oh wow.
I don't know why I'm calling you doctor today.
I don't know, but it seems shady. It feels shady. It feels
a little bit.
It's probably
I finally got to watch the Janet Jackson documentary. I know this ain't really news. Everybody shut the fuck up. So
I haven't watched it, so it's
well,
news to
I'm
me.
just going back to the Nipplegate thing.
Yeah.
I still believe that shit was on purpose and they just didn't expect the reaction. I do not believe that the nipple was exposed in a way that she did not expect it to be exposed, because she had a whole big ass nipple ring over it. That is like you acting like they're covering her nipple. Like, well, you just walk around with that shit on every day like that?
Yes.
It was like a star-studded silver or white gold on her nipple. So you never even saw the nipple.
How nipple rings work.
Tell him, Jackie.
I think I'm on the wrong show.
We don't wear them, y'all. I don't have one.
Wait a minute, you got the nipple ring?
Don't. I'm just saying. I'm just
Simmer down, Kamal.
I don't have one. I'm just making a point.
Oh wow, she raised the camera up.
I'm on the wrong show.
People trying to examine, trying to hit pause and embiggen that screen. Like, what did Jackie got under there? No, but Jackie, yes, explain to the non-breast nipple holders how nipple rings work.
How do y'all not know that? You just wear them all the time. They're just there. They're just there for adornment for yourself. Now,
wait, but Jackie, you said, how do we not know that you wear? I mean, we'll be doing like nipple ring surveys. Like, excuse me, do you wear your nipple ring all day? I mean, it'd be kind of weird.
I just thought that this was something like you know, what do you call them? The belly button rings and that. I mean, it's just.
But it wasn't like it wasn't like a regular nipple ring, like, you know, like a loop. This was a star-studded. It was like a star over her nipple.
It's a Janet Jackson nipple ring, Kamal.
She don't have a nipple ring from Cartier. She ain't gonna be getting a nipple ring from Claire's.
She paused. You know, he did his rip thing, and they did the. You know, it wasn't like she ran off stage and went like, "Ooh."
I do wonder about the breakaway part, but the nipple ring, I never questioned that. It's like, well, yeah, that makes.
I came on the wrong day, clearly.
The designer though of the outfit apparently had come out to say that he has never made a faulty garment, and so he, you know, he felt a little thrown under the bus, I think. But and the only other thing that I've heard about this issue that I remember is that apparently there's some debate in these YouTube streets about Janet's contradicting versions over the years. I honestly don't know, but that there are apparently people who have said she has changed her story over the years. But I have to admit I'm a little shocked that this is that big a deal all these years later.
It's only because it was Janet. I mean, you know, obviously, if this was a Madonna, it would have been rave reviews or some shit like that. If somebody like that had did it, as opposed to like a Janet Jackson, who I still think had the same thing. Like, you know, when Michael grabbed his crutch, his dick, basically. You know, it was like a huge uproar for some reason for like these white folks, because I guess their kids listen to it. So I think and it's weird too that the Super Bowl of all things is the platform that they defend as the kids friendly. I like the Super Bowl where motherfuckers are crashing into each other, knocking heads off. That's your kids friendly entertainment.
Advertising war machines and
broken legs, bodies, bones, all of like that. That's the space, the holy space where you can't show a nipple and shit. I don't understand.
You know, it's funny you said it's not like Madonna. I think the difference is, I don't know too many people wanted to see Madonna's prune or a raisin on top of her prune.
Simmer down.
Simmer
down.
But to
the reason it's such a big deal, I'm sorry, Jared, but the reason it's such a big deal is because Janet's career drastically suffered after this. I have not watched the documentary. I intend to watch it. But I'm wondering, did they include where the president or the head of CBS at the time, Les Moonves, allegedly said that he was going to either blackball Janet and really harm her career intentionally. Like there was a concerted effort behind the scenes of those in power and entertainment to make sure that Janet was excluded for certain things, that her projects didn't get proper promotion. I mean, you want to see what Black woman erasure looks like in real time, and for it to happen to somebody as prolific as Janet Jackson, who already had
on top at that point.
Exactly. She had a phenomenal career before the Super Bowl. So if that can happen to her, let that be a lesson to the rest.
None of that he was directed toward Timberlake either.
Exactly.
Well, she says in the doc, she says they remain friends, blah blah blah. So she doesn't throw him under the bus.
I mean, good for
but
him.
I was going to say quickly, she does the reason that she does not go back though. So people are like, she says she's got offers actually from Justin Timberlake to go back, and they discussed it, and she was like, she's not going to go back because it's like, one is water under the bridge, two, because of CBS's connection to it. At least maybe at the time she was asked then and now. And then, I like this, son. Am I the only one up on here?
We had talked about, and of course, Kamal missed it and was late, so now he's messing the whole thing up. We had talked about
doing like a live.
Around. We talked about messing with the production and trying to improve some of the production quality.
Well, do that. I mean, that was an improvement. See, I should do that again, and I'll just keep it moving.
But then you broke the fourth wall.
And my bad. But really quickly, so she did say that that's why she is not ever going back. She's been asked, but she's like, fuck it, I'm not going to do your show again. So it's not even like she's at this stage. She's more like, I'm gonna I'm not duplicating history on that. I'm just going to be me and do my next steps. Not on that no more though.
I mean, but Janet, you act like she really suffered. I mean, she went on to marry a billionaire and had a baby at 50. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like, did she really suffer?
No, but for her career, individualized her career, her music career, she took a huge harsh. It ain't exactly oppression.
That was harsh because that was Penny. Now, I mean,
it was Penny.
You can't say F Penny, man.
My bad, Penny.
Shame on you, DK. Dark K down there. Shame on you.
I'm sorry.
But in terms of the NFL, to be fair, they are for the children because they encourage people to stand up for the national anthem, and when someone's bones are broken and they are exposed, they do cut away and go to something else. So they're here for the kids. Be fair. True. I don't understand what the issue is. Stop hating on the NFL and Roger Goodell's $40 million salary. I don't understand what the problem is.
What would you mean? Anyway,
but also, and maybe even the segue to that news is that we have to remember that a lot of this was made a controversy because there is a considerable white conservative right wing that wants to make use of all that it can. So how many times?
About 25, if y'all gonna put that up there, about 25 and counting.
Which is probably about a third of all of the books he's written.
Exactly.
So anyway, who's gonna take us to the next level here? Anybody want to get us started with something more,
I'm confused. Y'all know went from. I ain't gonna repeat it, but anyway, anybody want to get started?
I mean, I do. If not, was there somebody jumping in there? I missed it. Jackie left, so I guess not. So what one thing I would want to bring up here real quick, because I'm actually interested in what you all think. Because, and I'm gonna tell you straight up, because shout out to the good brother who runs oh man, what's his name? Ramiro, what's his name? Oh man, help me out. Somebody in the chat's gonna know it too. But Ramiro Sebastian, is that his name? Who runs that great channel that deals a lot with Latin America internationalism and the real left. It'll come to me in a second. But Ramon Sebastian Funes, whose channel is great, and I'm looking to build with more here. And I will be appearing on his show Saturday, and we're going to do a little split time. He's going to interview me, and then I'm going to interview him. So shout out to him. And because he wants to talk about this Russia-Ukraine thing, I need you all to help me figure out what the position is on this. So and what's really happening. So we know that initially everybody has been saying that in this country, at least, that Russia is going to invade Ukraine. It's bound to happen. It's imminent. We got to stop them. We got to defend the Ukrainians, no matter how many Nazis and white supremacists that are in that joint. But apparently, and then yesterday they announced all the news, the headlines at least were saying Russia has invaded Ukraine. Reuters, everybody was saying, and then so I wanted to look, I was like, really? And then so I at least looked at this story here from The Guardian that at least was asking, is Russia invading Ukraine and what will happen next? And this is what they reported. I don't know if this has changed in the last few hours or late night, early morning, but what has been ordered here from Putin, according to The Guardian, the Russian president has recognized the independence of 2 Russian-controlled territories in East Ukraine. They call themselves the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics. The territories have been armed, financed, and politically controlled by Russia since 2014, but until this week, Russia still recognized them as part of the Ukraine. Putin has also sent his military on a peacekeeping mission to Ukraine, meaning that Russia will formally occupy sovereign Ukrainian territory for a second time following the 2014 annexation of Crimea. So I know that that's disputed in terms of how they're defining Crimea, but in this case, Russia has not annexed the territories. A document signed by Putin on Monday also allows him to establish military bases or place missiles in the territories. This is a map of the area where these Russian-controlled territories or the Donbass region are, have troops moving in to some extent, at least. First, Putin has indicated that the questions of Ukraine's rights to statehood, calling modern Ukraine an artificial construct of the Soviet Union. He also sees Russians and Ukrainians as one people, and he sees links that he thinks that a Western-leaning Ukraine is dangerous for Russia, and of course, the U.S. and the West want to promote it. So, again, it's being reported as an invasion in some circles. It's being more described as a peacekeeping mission with a few people sent by others. And of course, as he said on your show recently, Kalanji, Jamu Baraka, I think, laid out correctly what the overall picture should be and what our views of it should be. But anyway, what do you all think about what's happening here? And what, most importantly, what should my line be on Saturday when I go on Brother Ramiro's show?
Well, we need Jackie here.
Yeah, she says she's having internet issues. She's having internet issues, so it's bad timing for us. But
because I have a lot of questions, and I've actually bookmarked Kalanji's interview with Jamu Baraka about Russia and Ukraine to watch later, because I feel like I need a more broadened perspective of this, because just from an armchair perspective, I look at this, this is white on white crime. Why should Black people care about this? But in the context of U.S. imperialism and in dominionism, like I can see why we need to have a position on this. But there are questions I also have about the Nord Stream pipeline, which is bringing natural gas from Russia to Western Europe. And I know there was one Nord Stream pipeline, and I know the cancellation or the discussed cancellation of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline was sort of a point of discussion or negotiation between Russia and, I guess, NATO. But I think this was a Biden administration want or demand that this pipeline be canceled. And I'm curious, how the Germans feel about that, because this was gas coming to their nation. I think this was an agreement that Germany had negotiated with Russia, but as a part of the NATO alliance, I think the Germans are being forced to stand down from this gas pipeline. So, I have questions about that. But, from the Russian perspective, because if you watch American mainstream media, Russia has no perspective, right? Whatever Russia's talking is outright crazy. But no, I feel where Putin's coming from. Nigga, don't bring them missiles in my backyard and point them in my house. Like, yes, we would have some problems if that was the case, and you trying to get my neighbors to link up against me. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, I have questions. I have lots of questions also, Jared. I await Jacqueline's return to.
I think she's coming back. But I wanted to start with sharing really quickly just so this is the way the New York Times, frames, and the picture that they use, Ukraine vows to defend itself, Putin remains defiant. So Ukraine, as the New York Times puts it, is surrounded by new military presence from Russia. And the only reason I wanted to put that up was just that, we've got that same map of, let's say, Iran surrounded by U.S. bases. But the New York Times would never leave, and of course the United States is not even close to Iran, right? It's on another continent. But the New York Times would never frame a story about Iran under threat of invasion from the United States because it's surrounded by U.S. bases. Ukraine is, in some ways, in terms of the historical dispute of it, and again, Jackie may give more information. There's dispute about its sort of historical connection to Russia. In lots of parts of it, the same language is spoken. In Crimea, 98% of folks voted that they wanted to break away. So there's constant flux and back and forth. It's not so much I'm saying that if an invasion is afoot that I necessarily agree with it, but in some ways I do think there's some white nationalism in general at Russia that's played. That's as well there in the Ukraine, and I'm not down with any of that. But obviously, I think from Russia's larger point of view, NATO has continued to come closer and closer and closer to box Russia in. Russia is looked at sort of as the poor boy of Europe, right? Who doesn't just get in line with the historical role of being subservient to Western Europe's needs, providing that oil, providing what it needs in terms of cheap labor, then shutting the fuck up and staying in place. Because Russia challenges, and at some point in its history actually had a very left communist, obviously challenge to Western imperialism, backed out of imperialist wars. It's going to be made to suffer, right? Just the way Cuba is made to suffer, so forth and so on, until it plays nice the way Western Europe prescribes that it should play. It's going to be an enemy of Western Europe unless it basically cries uncle and says, do what you want to do. And there was that one brief period of time when Russia thought it was going to get lots of goods from the West, and it voted in the United Nations Council for some of the sanctions that are actually currently on Iran. It tried to do what the West wanted, and still, that's partly what Putin's return back was like. Look, you're making us the lapdog of Western Europe, and Russia says that it's not going to be the lapdog, right? So I think some of that is also part of the history of what's happening.
So I apologize that I had some weird internet things going on. So obviously we're talking about Ukraine and the war that is about to happen in the Ukraine, because the United States and the United Nations have been stoking a war against Russia in the Ukraine. And really, they've been doing it since the end of World War II, probably, the Western nations. That there's too much history in that. I suggest that people listen to, for right now, the Socialist Program, Brian Becker doing the Socialist Program. They are really going into a lot of deep history of Russia, the collapse of the Soviet Union after World War II. I always like to point out how Winston Churchill wanted the U.S. to nuke Russia even before World War II was ended, because they just, didn't like the communisms, even though it was the Red Army of the Soviet Union that actually won World War II and saved both the U.S. and the UK's asses. But that's another story. So what's going on in the Ukraine is directly related to the 2014 coup in Ukraine that was fomented by Barack Obama and Joe Biden, where they did not want the democratically elected president in Ukraine. I can't remember his name right now.
Is it Timoshenko? Was it Timoshenko, Jackie? Because his wife had the big blonde braid.
I can't. All those right now, all those names are kind of floating around in my head. But in 2014, the Ukrainians elected. They had a democratic election where they voted for their own president, and they liked this guy because he was neutral on Russia. He didn't want to be the West puppet in opposing Russia. He wanted good relations with Russia. He didn't want to cause no problems. He just
clearly he had to go.
Exactly. So Obama and Biden and John McCain and Victoria Nuland cooked up this plan to overthrow his government. But who did they use to do it? There was always a minority white supremacist neo-Nazi fascist faction in Ukraine. The Obama administration with Victoria Nuland and John McCain literally went to Ukraine. There are pictures of John McCain standing on a stage with members of Ukrainian far-right leaders in, propping them up to overthrow the democratically elected president of Ukraine. Everybody knew these people were neo-Nazis. The black guy and Uncle Joe were fine with it. Victoria Nuland gave them Bama's cookies. They overthrew the government. They committed a whole bunch of atrocities, one of which was the Odessa trade union fire, where they trapped Ukrainian protesters who did not want the coup. They were protesting against the coup. They trapped them in the trade union building in Odessa, set it on fire, and burned people alive. These are the people that the Obama administration armed and funded to overthrow the democratically elected Ukrainian president in 2014. Okay.
But I would watch that show, Jackie, The Black Guy and Uncle Joe. I would watch that. I would watch that.
Yeah, we're watching season 2 right now.
I would binge that.
We are watching season 2. So all of the neo-Nazis have now been absorbed into the government in Ukraine. So that even though the president of Ukraine now is of Jewish descent, he's pretty much powerless against these people because they're neo-Nazis. What are you going to do? And they're backed by the US. So what's going on now is that the breakaway independent region in Ukraine that has been under attack by these neo-Nazis for years, since 2014, they are ethnic Russians. So they have never wanted this coup. They have always been fighting against these damn neo-Nazis. And so when the US media is talking about, Ukrainian military members or Ukrainian militia are helping grandmothers and children learn how to fight, those are the neo-Nazis that are teaching grandmas and kids how to kill these ethnic Russians. That's what's going on. And there's actually a picture in mainstream media of one of these militia members who's supposed to be the good guys with literally a patch of the Azov battalion on his arm. What's the Azov battalion? A big ass neo-Nazi organization. So these people are the ones who are supposedly defending Ukraine, but they're actually very anti-Russian. They are puppets of the US. Everybody in the US government knows they're
trained by the CIA too, right?
Trained by the CIA. All the typical footprint of US imperialism, all that kind of stuff. These are the people who the US are saying, the US and NATO are saying, we have to defend them against the Russians. And the Russians' entire beef is that the United States and NATO has violated every single agreement to keep NATO from putting missiles and troops directly on its border. These were agreements that were made after the fall of the Berlin Wall, I think, and all of that kind of stuff. And let's go really quickly. Let's just go back real quick to 1995, when the United States under Bill Clinton helped re-elect, quite literally sent someone to Russia to manage the campaign of Boris Yeltsin, because they needed to have somebody in Russia to be Washington's puppet, to implement these neoliberal reforms that Washington wanted so they could steal Russia's resources. But everybody in Russia hated Boris Yeltsin. That was the only way he could win. So Boris Yeltsin finally gives up the ghost and doesn't run for another term, because he sees, at this point, he's an alcoholic, and it's quite clear that he's just completely incapable. So what does he do? He grooms, guess who? Vladimir Putin, to be one of his successors. I think somebody was elected after him, and then Vladimir Putin comes in, and Putin is like, fuck the US, no more oligarchs, no more, none of that. We ain't doing this. No. So all of this, there's a lot of history in this, but what this really is something that Jambu Baraka of Black Alliance for Peace calls pan-European hegemony. It is, it's white on white violence. It really is. But it is also extremely important to us. Number one, because if the US goes to war, whose kids you think they send in? The politicians' kids are not going. Y'all's kids are going. I don't have any kids. Y'all's kids are going. You're right. number two, while this is happening, while people are believing this bullshit about Russia is trying to invade Ukraine, which they're not. All of Russia's troops are inside of Russia's own borders. And they have the troops directly on their borders, number one, because it's their business and they can. And number two, but it probably should be number one, because the United States and NATO and their allies have been performing military exercises in all of the countries that are bordering Russia for years in a show of continual provocation. And those exercises have been escalating. So then the other thing is that while all this is going on, and Russia is really just like not trying to invade Ukraine, really trying to protect ethnic Russians, really don't want the neo-Nazis to come pouring into Russia again, because we already had that problem and lost 25 million people in World War II. Remember, there's also, while this is happening, the U.S. is also continuing to fuck around on the continent, on the African continent. Haiti is building a wall, or the Dominican Republic is allegedly building a wall between it and Haiti. We need to know who's funding that. We need to know who's building that. There's this guy from Kenya, the ambassador from Kenya, who is propping up the U.S. and NATO at the UN Security Council, talking about, we respect the sovereignty of Ukraine, doing NATO and the U.S.'s bidding. And people are like, yeah, that's right. An African is telling Russia off. And people don't understand that Kenya is a fucking vassal state of the United States and has been. So there's all this going on. And it all points to the need for us to really, really understand U.S. imperialism and how deep it is and how it is absolutely important to us. And we're going to be at war again if we don't get this shit clear.
Jacqueline, what about the role of the pipeline?
Hey, we gotta come back.
Jackie,
Hey, Jackie.
The role of the pipeline. Your gas prices are about to go up. There you go. That's
big facts.
No.
Jackie, pass the Dutchie upon the left hand side.
This side?
Yeah, we all gotta get in here now. Word.
I had to give the high level.
Hey, you went in. So we're gonna have to come back after this break and get everybody in there on that one. Yo, so we're gonna take a quick break and I'm gonna do an artist spotlight. So stick around. Black Power Media, y'all.
Remix.
The remix.
That's how we do right here, boy. We go in about these topics, passionate about it. So here's what we're gonna do right now. We're gonna do an artist spotlight. I was just thinking, I was playing some 80s music, as you can hear right here, and I was like, yo, who deserves an artist spotlight? And I was thinking, man, you know what? Let me talk about Billy Ocean. That's right. What y'all know about Billy Ocean, aka Leslie Sebastian Charles? That's right. He's known as Billy Ocean. Born in Trinidad, Tobago, moved to England when he was 10 years old. I mean, this guy was blowing up in the 80s. He started off in the 70s, but he really blew up in the 80s. He had When the Tough Gets Going, the Going Gets Tough. And he also had Caribbean Queen. You know what I'm saying? That was the joint right there. He actually won a Grammy for that one right there. And then he had There'll Be Sad Songs. He had Suddenly You're in Love. So I mean, the dude had pop songs. He had R&B songs. He had ballads. I mean, this guy totally came in the 80s and blew it up. And listen, in case you don't know about him, this dude has over, how many albums do you have, you wonder? Let's see. This guy has 11 albums. Did you even know that? He started off with his first album back in 1976, Billy Ocean, self-titled, all the way to his last album, One World, 2020. So as you can see, the guy's been doing it for a minute. So if you don't know, now you do. Go check out Billy Ocean, because that guy has went from Billy Ocean of the 80s to Billy Ocean of 2020s. Big up to Billy Ocean and his vegetarian self. All right, so let's take it back out of here and get back to the Remix Morning Show.
Ooh, I like Billy looking like Jesus up in there.
Isn't he gorgeous? Oh my God! Look, I mean, just looking like a prophet walking out the desert with tablets.
Yeah. What if he wears a nipple ring?
Thank you, ear doctor, for telling me that Billy Ocean was Trini. I always assumed he was Jamaican. I had no, I knew he was Caribbean, but I didn't know he was Trini. That's a nice little fun fact.
What happened?
What had just happened? Why
What
do you
you
have
mean?
me thinking about Billy Ocean's nipple?
Right.
Kim tried to save us. Kim tried to save
you. I know. Kim just jumped right over the nipple ring comment and kept it moving.
But you have to ignore. You got to ignore New York niggas sometimes. They just be talking. They just be talking.
Yo, but I mean, in the 80s, he was pretty big, man. A lot of people forgot about him.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love the fact in everybody the television show Everybody Hates Chris, the daughter, the little sister loved Billy Ocean more than Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Right. And I actually think about him every time I hear somebody say Frank Ocean. Billy is the one I think of. I have to forget that there's somebody else. I'm like, who's this?
Only
Frank
one
dude?
Ocean.
Is this Frank's son? Like, who, I mean,
Exactly.
is this Billy's son? What is going on here? Is this Billy's
There's only
kid?
one.
Like,
Well, that's your artist spotlight for the day.
Right. Wait, doctor, I have a question. Is it true now when Caribbean Queen came out, was there a version being played in the UK and in Europe called European Queen? Do I have that right?
No.
It was always
God, I hope not.
Are you sure? Let me do my good.
Well, I'll let you do your Google.
That would be imperialism.
We're not above it. I bet you do find a song like that.
Oh. European Queen.
So it would probably be more
somebody
like
from the Ukraine made that.
Ukrainian Queen.
Now we're sharing the same colonizing.
Why you gotta do my man like that? Y'all dead wrong.
I was about to say, poor Billy.
You know what I'm saying? Willie D. Ocean. Anyway,
that's BPM giveth and taketh away. And anybody who got something? Anybody got something else they want us to get to this morning? A big shout out to I'm assuming that's Amber that hooked us up with her stories on the run sheet this morning. Since we continue to shatter the fourth wall, big ups to Amber.
No doubt. Jackie got a guest today, man.
Jackie's guest is here. My bad. My apologies. And guess who it is? Boom.
Let me say,
I didn't even see that. I was like, what's going on?
Let me say he made his first podcast ever appearance on Renegade Culture.
Hey.
First podcast ever. Mm-hmm. Yes, I just had to throw that in there just because. Anyway. So how y'all gonna
Jackie, you want to introduce your guest?
Hey.
I mean, does he need introduction? I don't think he needs introduction. I feel so weird, like introducing these people who I, through my work and through my evolution, and my increasing of knowledge about the issue of political prisoners and what this state is and our place in it. I feel so weird introducing these people because I do not understand how I ended up in the same sphere with them at all. So, I mean, if you all do not know who Brother Jalil Muntaqim is, shame on you. You have an opportunity to go find out right now, but you'll hear from him in a moment. And I have, just an absolute. I just called him and just to, make sure we're, he was good and ready. And, the man answered the phone and he said, "Good morning, sister." And I mean, to have Jalil Muntaqim call me sister, y'all don't understand what that means to somebody like me, who, I mean, I'm just like, I talk for a living. That's what I do. I have not been anywhere near. Yeah, I've been through some stuff, but I've not been through any kind of stuff like this brother has been through. And to have this man call me sister, you don't understand what that does for me. So we're going to talk to Jalil Muntaqim for a few minutes about his continuing work on behalf of political prisoners. that we seriously need to focus on, because all of this other stuff that we focus on, if we're not serious about freeing our people, then none of us are free. We can stop war all day long, but if our people are still behind the walls, then we're still at war. So that's what we got coming up in a few minutes. Okay, I'm getting emotional.
Oh,
okay.
I call you
It
sister
was
all the
kind of
time.
emotional. Hold it in, Jack. Breathe.
Yes, indeed, you all here in the Remix Morning Show. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. And I am very happy, very pleased, and really honored always to have Jalil Muntaqim on with me today, talking about his latest ongoing effort to connect the issues of political prisoners with the struggle of colonized people. And, Brother Muntaqim, thank you so much for joining us this morning on the Remix Morning Show. I really, really appreciate you, and glad to see you again.
Assalamu alaikum, guten tag, habagani, paz, peace, hada adea, shalom, whatever language that you speak, I greet you in peace and solidarity. The sentiments of peace and solidarity in the same, in your language. Thank you, sister, for inviting me to this for this opportunity to speak on behalf of our political prisoners, our POWs, who have been in prison. Many of them have been in prison 30, 40, 50 years. It is time for them to be home. And we are engaged in a dynamic struggle, both national and international, to reach that goal, to ensure that our comrades are released from prison and are home safely with their families and loved ones. It's been, like I said, been decades. I spent 49 plus years in prison as a result, and it was a big fight in order to get me out. And so I think we need to continue. I honor that fight. And so for me to be out in the streets, to be at home, I have an obligation to continue to fight on behalf of our comrades.
Indeed. Wa alaikum assalam to you also, and shalom, brother. You do exemplify that struggle, because as soon as you got out, and as soon as you came home, you've been working. You've been actually doing this work. And I think that for me, if you can hit the streets and look back and reach back and make sure that we are understanding that we need to reach over the walls, then the least we can do is do half of what you do. So that's why I wanted to have you come on and talk about the latest effort that you were involved in this webinar that connects the struggle of political prisoners with colonized people around the world. And I think this is really important in how we look at our struggles, that we have to connect them. It's not just, us over here, and then we can do this other thing later. As you all discussed in the webinar, no, the reasons our political prisoners are always connected with the same reasons that people around the world are colonized. So, I'm going to stop editorializing, and I just want you to enlighten people on the connections between the struggles of our political prisoners and colonized people, and why you think that connecting these struggles in this way will be a more effective way for us to move the ball forward in freeing our people.
Sister, that's a big question right there. That's a huge question, right? And I'm gonna try to answer it as succinctly as I possibly can, as poignant as I possibly can, to reach as many people with some understanding of why bringing our story to the international community is so important. The first thing I want to express is that Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X, instructed us to do this, right? He's the one that told us prior to his death, prior to his murder, that we should take our struggle outside of the purview outside of the confinement and defining of the United States government, right? He said, for as long as we keep our struggle within the 2,000, 3,000 miles territory of the United States government, then our struggle will continue to be defined by our oppressor, right? He said that if we take our struggle to the international community and link our struggle with those who are also engaged in their fight against the same or common enemy as ours, right? Then we bring our struggle into the international platform and become a human rights issue, right? So we're taking it out of the ideas of that we are fighting for civil rights, and we're taking it to the idea, the goal, the objective that we are recognized as human beings, right? And so therefore, our struggle is one of human rights, plain and simple. Okay, now let me add some depth to that. Okay, we have to come to a real true understanding that we, as a people in the United States, are colonized people, right? That they have created a new nation here in the United States, and we have not, in our understanding of that, we have not really internalized the fact that we are a new people, right?
Wow.
Now I can go historically on this, and I'm just going to be very succinctly, right? Again, because this is a huge question to ask. And in order for us to really have some depth of understanding of it, we have to go to history, right? We have to go to our being here in the United States. And our being here in the United States was by virtue of the Atlantic slave trade. And by virtue of the Atlantic slave trade, they took away from us our culture, right? Our language, right? We came over this country speaking Mandingo and Mandinka and Hausa and Fula and Igbo and all various other tribes and nations, right, of Africa, on the west coast of Africa, and parts of the east coast or the northeast coast of Africa, speaking of Arabia, right, or speaking Arabic. And what happened was that they took all that away, took it all away, and gave us this bastardized language they call English, right? And even in our speaking of that English, they denounce our Ebonics, right? Again, right, destroying our culture, right? And defining who we are. And as a process, our messenger nation, right? Our messenger nation with the Dutch, the Portuguese, the English, the Spanish, right? The Cherokee, the Creek, the Seminoles, right? The Arawak, the Tianos. All that is the composition of who we are today, right? It's all part of our DNA, right? But they're not teaching us that. They're not informing us that. They have created, in essence, they have created a new African, right? And so we need to begin to identify ourselves as that, right? And in so doing, apply the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, right? Under section, I think it's 15, 1 and 2 of section 15, that states that we have a right to determine our own nationality. 2, no one has the right to arbitrarily take away from us our nationality. Right? And so here in the United States, we've been called everything except children of God. Right? We've been called the coons, the N-words. Then eventually it came to a Negro, whatever the heck a Negro is. I don't know where Negro land is at, but
right. There's no Negro land.
Yeah, ain't no Negro land, right? We would call it black, right? We did not identify ourselves as black. At one time, calling yourself black was fighting words amongst us, all right? And then in 69 or 70 or something like that, 1978, something like that, Jesse Jackson started calling us African Americans. And so by his announcing of that, we began to accept that as our nomenclature, right? Who we are, identifying ourselves as that. Now, there's a problem with that because what happens is when we identify ourselves as African Americans, knowing that America has never been in support of Africa, right? We identify ourselves schizophrenically, right? And almost in a bipolar state of mind, right? Yes.
So it's like we internalize that contradiction of us even being here and why we're here and how we're here.
Absolutely correct. And that is a major problem. How we identify ourselves, and essentially what we have done in the process of doing so, we have internalized our own oppression. Right? There's no way in the world that people can live under a system of white supremacy for 400 years and not be traumatized by it. Right? And so for us, for many of us, right, the depth of the extent of that traumatization for us have been normalized, right? Have been normalized. And so we are expected to endure our oppression, right? We are expected to, not only by white folks, but by black folks, right? So we have internalized it. And so what I'm saying is that what Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz says, that we need to begin to identify ourselves, right? And bring our struggles into the purview of the worldview internationally. Now, let me just add a little bit more to that, right? Why we need to do so. And I want to go back into the history, right?
Yeah.
And building what we call the Black Belt South. Black Belt South has always been the homeland of black people in this country, African people in this country, African people in America. All right. And to this date, the majority of black people, African people in America, live in the Black Belt South. Right. Okay. Now, according in the Civil War, now again, it goes so.
Come on. Yep.
Are you ready for? Okay. During the Civil War in 1862-63, right? General Tecumseh Sherman pronounced what is called an executive order 15. Executive Order 15 was based upon the Emancipation Proclamation, right? And the Emancipation Proclamation was said that all individuals freed from slavery, right, can establish their own homeland. That's when they came with 40 acres and a mule, right? And the Tecumseh 15th Field Order 15 stated that from St. John's River south to the Florida Basin will be in control of these black people, right? And as a result of that, we began to create what we call freedom bureaus in that territory. A lot of people, they don't teach us in class, right, in school, right? This is why Carter G. Woodson says, I wrote his book, The Miseducation of the Negro, all right? We've been miseducated, right? We've been indoctrinated into an idea that we're less than, but we should be more than, but nonetheless. So Field Order number 15 established the foundation for emancipation, the freedom of the land, freedom of the land, okay? And then in during the Hayes-Tilden compromise, Hayes-Tilden presidential debate, okay, right? Hayes won the collegiate electoral votes, right? Where this other character, he won the popular vote from down south, right?
Right. This was the compromise of 1877.
Thank you, sis. 1877. That's right. The Hayes-Tilden compromise. And as a result of that compromise, they withdrew Yankee soldiers from the territory that was being governed by black people. Right? Hayes withdrew the Yankee soldiers, and as a result of that, we succumbed 100 years of lynching, 100 years of terror. It started the first migration, right, or exodus out of the South into the North and the West, right, of African people. And so we have been traumatized under this kind of dehumanization, right, for centuries.
Yeah.
And we rest assured that we have suffered traumatization as a result of that. And so what we're trying to do, what we are doing today is rebuilding, right, reestablishing that sense of nationhood, right? And we're bringing it to both the national and international community as part of the process, right? Following the instructions of Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X, as he instructed us to do, right? And so therefore our struggle moving forward is not no longer one of civil rights, but one of human rights. And we're building towards true independence. Now, the process of what we're doing so, for me, I consider it what we call decolonization programs. We need to build decolonization programs across the country. Why? Because we need to decolonize our minds, decolonize our thinking, right? In terms of who we are as a people in this country. In a country that, in essence, really don't want us here in the first place.
That's right. That's right.
We got to come to that realization, right? They really don't want us, but don't know what to do with us. The Civil War was a war based upon what white folks going to do about black people, African people in this country, right? And now we are coming to the possibility of a second Civil War, right? And the question still is, what black people going to do about, what white people going to do about black people, right? That's what happened on January 6th. That's what that was about. That's why they're trying to suppress the vote across the country, right? Republicans and white supremacists are trying to suppress the vote across the country because they don't want us in power. They don't want us to have, or even the shared power, if we were to even take to that level, which we're not, okay? Right. Who wants to share in the system of capitalism and imperialism? Who wants to share in a system that throughout the world is killing people of color, right? Engaged in mass murder of people of color around the world, right? And so this is the reason why we brought our struggle to the international platform, right? To inform people that we are in solidarity with them, right? And they should be in solidarity with us in regards to our struggle here in the United States, right? Why? Because we have a common enemy. Who's the common enemy? White supremacy.
Right? That's right.
Second off, capitalism, imperialism.
Right.
The exploitation of our resources and our human labor, right? Now, let me put that in some context. I'm talking about exploitation of our human resources, our labor and resources, right? In the United States, there are 544 billionaires. 544 billionaires, right? Those billionaires have accumulated wealth of $2.6999 trillion.
Wow.
That is all the wealth of Western Europe. All the wealth of Western Europe is in the hands of 544 people in the United States. They accumulated wealth, right? And they control the country, right? We don't live in a democracy. We live in a plutocracy. The rich rules.
That's right. That's right. We have oligarchs here.
Yeah. Okay. So let's understand that. So given that reality of 330 million people in the United States and 544 billionaires control the wealth of this country, right? Here we are fighting over the crumbs, right? We are complicit in our own oppression by permitting these 544 billionaires to control the wealth of this country. All right, we're complicit in that. We're allowing the hoarding of wealth to the detriment of millions of people who are homeless,
right?
Who are hungry,
right?
All right, who are basically living from hand to mouth. Right, this is the system that we live in, and it's the system that reaps its profits for the exploitation of people of color throughout the world. So why shouldn't we not link our struggle with their struggle? Right, we have a common enemy.
Right. And that was the beautiful thing about the panel that you were just on the 21st, and I put the link in the chat for people to go and look at the video for it, the recording for it. That's part of the Spirit of Mandela committee, where these issues are linked with the struggle of Palestinian people, with the struggle of Puerto Rican people, with the struggle of people from Sahara on the continent, all people who are suffering under U.S. imperialism and in colonized communities by U.S. imperialism. We have to make clear that we are also struggling under the same system, because we are living we're in a colony. We are colonized people in this country. And as you said, Brother Haj Malik Shabazz said it, especially in his speech to
Balance of the Bullets,
message for the grassroots. I think
message for the grassroots, balance of the Bullets, and even Dr. Martin Luther King made the point of the issues that we are into a system of genocides.
Exactly.
Right? And he said that in which speech was that? The Other America.
Yes.
Right? The speech called Other America. People need to read that speech from Dr. King. Or YouTube it. You can YouTube it because it'll come up on YouTube. The Other America, or Dr. King's message. Right? And if you compare that speech with El Haj Malik Shabazz's speech and the Battle of the Bullet, they're both saying the same thing.
Same thing. So here we are, all these years later, continuing the work that they have done, which we should have always been doing, but capitalism and imperialism had some of us kind of confused. But we're not confused anymore. We are working on decolonizing our people's education and unconfusing our people to build this solidarity and free ourselves. And I wish we had more time, but we don't. But Brother Muntaqim, thank you so much for coming on and helping us understand these connections and why we need to be making them.
Can I make one last?
You get the last word.
One last point, right? October 25th, 2021. A group of us under the Spirit of Mandela, and people can go to spiritmandela.org or tribunal2021.com, right, and learn about, on October 25th, 2021, the international jurist found the United States guilty of genocides.
That's right.
It's the first time in the history of this country that the United States has been found guilty of genocide, committing genocide against Black, brown, indigenous people, right? And we're linking that to the people around the world, right? That now they have every right to charge the United States with human rights violations, as the United States has hypocritically charged other nations of human rights violations. The United States has been found guilty of genocides. And this is how we're moving our struggle going forward. Our struggle is no longer a question of civil rights. Our struggle for now, from this day forward, is a struggle of human rights, right? And we charge the United States with genocides.
That's right. And the United States is indeed guilty. Thank you so much, Brother Muntaqim. Jalil Muntaqim, for joining us. And stay tuned here on Black Power Media, the Remix Morning Show.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam, brother.
All power to the people.
Indeed. All power to the people. We're going to transition. What y'all doing back there? Because I will keep talking. I will do
if he's going to stay.
Apparently, Jalil is joining us as a co-host.
I was going to say, if he's going to stay, he's welcome to stay.
Yes. Let's rock.
Thank you, DM Lawrence, for the super chat. Beyond the versus rhetoric or HU versus Morgan, esteemed giants versus each other. Friday was an example of how we should be all coming together no matter what. The black leg. Right on. I mean, I hear you. There are some contradictions I think we have to overcome, but to work together more effectively. But I certainly agree.
Oh, read the comment. I'm sorry, Jared, I missed it. What
sorry.
did the chat say?
It got taken away. It was quick. It was there. It is beyond the versus rhetoric or Howard versus Morgan or esteemed giants versus each other. Friday was an example of how we should be all coming together no matter what. The black left is fragmented, as each said. So. Thanks also to QKR Anarchists for the super chat, 3-4 solidarity, Twitter action for Brazilian local MP Renato Freitas, who's being persecuted, threatened after standing up in racist region against brutal murder of a migrant. Watch next few days at QR Socialist for poster.
All right.
Thank you very much for that as well. And the heads up on that. Thanks, Jackie, for doing that interview, getting Jalil back. It's always a pleasure to see him again. And I have to say, thank you, Global Sisters Media, and for your consistent good work as well. They do a lot of great work in keeping us informed. Jalil is the only political prisoner I have visited while incarcerated. And I was just thinking that as you were doing that interview a couple of years ago when my family was out of town, I just took on a whim almost. I mean, we had been in some contact, but I just drove up to Attica and was reminded. First of all, it's a beautiful ride from here in Maryland. I mean, the East Coast of the United States can be very beautiful, and I'm sure the indigenous people who were here first thought so too. But I noticed as you get up closer, of course, into even upstate New York, you see more and more. It was more Confederate flags, more American flags, which I always take as a sign of racism as well, and more. I saw Nazi flags. I saw Trump signs, and then I'm thinking as I'm getting closer to where Jalil is being held. And then you get to Attica, and I had never seen it that in person, I don't think. And it looks like a castle, which is weird. It's got that castle look to it. And then when I went in there, I was so naive. They when you have to fill out the forms, it says, what is your, who are you here to see? And then so you had to put in his government name, which is the first thing I had to remember. They're not going to recognize him as Jalil. And then you had to put, what is your relationship to him? And I was like, I was stuck on that. Like, what is my relationship? And I wrote student. And the guards called me over and were like, "That's not." They were looking at me like, "What are you doing? That's not. What is that?
It's not sanctioned, brother.
That's not sanctioned. You can't students. Like, what is that?" So they were like, "Are you a relative?" I was like, "No, I'm not a blood relative." And I actually said, "I'm a comrade."
Nice, Jared.
And they were like, "Now we gonna lock you up."
Did you really want to see him? Did you really want to see him?
Never have Jared go to court with you.
I was naive because I'm saying I'm trying to be as honest as possible, and I'm like, so I'm not a blood relative. I'm not a friend, which is what I ultimately had to put down. I was like, friend just feels that's not our relationship. But anyway, so I'm just, but yeah, it was no, I'm good in court. Don't get
rule number one.
I'm good in court.
Rule number one.
I straighten up.
Yeah, I but
you have no obligation. You have no obligation to tell the truth to white folks or the state. So let's keep that in mind.
Ding, ding, ding. Yes.
Okay.
Of all the political prisoners, I mean, I might have seen Jalil the most. Unfortunately, in New York, at one point, we had probably 8 or 9 political prisoners at the same time. Like, there was the Queens 2, the New York 3, which Jalil was a part of. David Gilbert. Later on, at one point, obviously, Sekou was also there. There was Teddy Jahith, who was also a PP. And so we made the rounds continually in terms of visits and supporting David. I think I mentioned David Gilbert was also one of them. To see these folks, and you're right. I mean, your description. I never liked it because it got cold, but your description is apt, as in, and again, it's just the trajectory of seeing. You're going from, we took the bus where people every day would take the buses, or on certain days would take buses to see their family members, and we would get on those buses, right? So it's like 15 buses outside, folks, everyday folks, Black folks from all over the city are mostly there, getting on them buses to see their family members. People are not in great moods, of course, because, just like I got to spend literally on the low end 3 or 4 hours, on the high end 6 hours, 7 hours from New York City to get up to these places to see my relatives. And then you got to put up with the guards, because again, the guards,
and you got to wait too.
You got to wait.
It's not you sitting there, and it was just a room full of poor Black and brown people, and a few whites, but mostly poor Black and brown people. Everybody was poor. I was sitting in the room with everybody. You could just see
even the guards. The guards,
even the guards.
Yeah, but they show their authority. Again, the whole white supremacy thing, right? And why the working class solidarity falls apart a lot, because the guards are appreciative of their positions of having power over who? Over Black people, right? And showing you who's boss. And show it.
By the way, sorry. No, sorry. By the way, I'm lying. I did go see Eddie Conway before he got out too, in Jessup, right down the street here.
It's a mini, it's a mini version of what plantation life. It can't obviously it's not going to be. It's not all that, but it's a mini version of what plantation life was somewhat, or probably like prison. In those places, surrounded by white people getting jobs, white people showing authority over you. Most of the war-ins are old white men who are running it, and it's about for the most part, it's about your degradation. And then people like Jalil and other folks would be the leaders, and sometimes the background leaders of like strikes and revolts and challenges and political education, to try to have some dignity, settling disputes, training young people. All that stuff was work that they were doing at the time that they were incarcerated. And again, all praises due. That brother came out still strong, still fighting. And to be honest, one of the reasons I think Jalil stayed as long as, people don't like to talk about this, but one of the reasons Jalil in particular was captured and stayed as long as he did was because, constantly it was put forth to Jalil by friend and foe to either renounce or move back on some of your politics, and that brother just would not do it. So
I think it's important to add on to what you said as well, Kamal, in regards to the whole plantation situation. I think a lot of folks who haven't visited PP or even PPs or even visited any prisoners, for that matter, one of the things that that they utilize is the fact that usually the guards and the warden and all of those are folks who are local to that particular area. You know what I mean? So indeed, it's treated as a plantation because of the fact that you're shipping these outsiders, you know, to this particular area, to this region, and they have to come to work with you every day, and they want to make sure that you feel the pain that they feel because of the fact that they're suffering as well. But unfortunately, with capitalism, it creates this divide, like you said, this divide between not only race but class. So it's like you're looked at as just some, you know, I mean, like you said, like a captive, and they deal with you as such. Well, it's spitting in your food or whatever. I remember when I was locked up in South Carolina in the 80s, they would literally get roadkill off the street. I mean, we had work crews, and they would bring the roadkill back to the prison. Now, we knew for certain that some of that roadkill, if you eat meat, it's a chance that you might be eating some deer from that you scooped up a couple of days ago. You know what I'm saying? Because no one's monitoring it. And especially when you're dealing with these with the privatized prisons, it's a whole nother world. It's a whole nother monkey.
Hey, when and by the way, right up here at Jessup, Maryland, where I for a while was going regularly, it's like, to your point about who's where they get the local population to perform the work. It was like a reverse Pan-Africanism. All the guards are diasporan Africans, even I think more so, at least when I was going, more so than even Africans from, you know, Black Americans. And that was another level of the trauma, because they were performing the same abusive roles in relationship to a mostly Black prison population. So I mean, it is, you talk about the neo-colonial situation in live in effect too. It's wild. It's crazy.
And then one last the thing that, you know, because how this affects the whole Black community, not just political prisoners, but, you know, what we consider like regular prisoners or whatever, is most of the prison population, or the great majority of it, or higher percentage than a representation in a larger population, is Black men. And the overwhelming majority of people visiting these prisoners are either their girlfriends, their wives, their mothers, and sometimes the children are coming. And again, the treatment in particular of like, they've measured skirt lengths, you know what I mean, for women. They've done the search, and then they'll make folks take off their bras because they've said there's a wire in it. It's not the appropriate. They've even made folks, they've even stopped visits from happening, even though, again, someone has come up 6, 7 hours worth to get there, because they said they weren't dressed appropriately, or they had something on. So imagine you're coming with your kids, or you're coming to see somebody who, you know, you got to save up to come see. You probably see them once a month, 2 or 3 months, if even possible, to try to hold together a relationship or a family unit. And these, you know, poor white trash folks, arbitrarily, even depending on how nice you are to them, right, get to decide whether you see a family member or not. Send you home crying. Send you home with your kids crying. Send your family members home even more distressed after they've spent that money, because they determine that the length of your outfit is too long, or your hair even is not it's not appropriate for a prison visit.
And they're no fan of people. Yeah, I'm sorry. And they're no fan of people coming in there trying to teach classes either. Like, it's like a whole lot of microaggressive and sometimes macroaggressive hostility. So anyway, it's just a horrible
dumbasses. They try to teach you. They wouldn't have a debate or argue with you about something. Even, you know, just what do you know, B? You got a job. Because I mean, you know, no offense, you know, to whatever.
No, they're just. I remember this one sister was looking over the paperwork, looking over the glasses at me like, you got a PhD, you teach in Africana studies. Like, she was like I was like, damn. That's just,
is that even a thing?
Right. It was that whole attitude, like, what are you even gonna do in here? Like, what does that do? Like, how does that help? I was just
wasting your time.
It's like, I don't know, you know, anyway.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jared.
Well, I was actually gonna transition while we were on the theme of policing and incarceration with a couple with some news that was relative. But Kalonji, I think you might have been trying to do the same. I don't know.
Oh yeah, no. I was just gonna mention because I was transitioning from Jalil's piece and just reminding folks that tomorrow we have Baba Zach Kondo on at 11:30 on right after the remix tomorrow 11:30. PM for folks who are familiar or not familiar with Baba Zach Kondo. I know that Jared had him on last year, but he is a scholar and author of Conspiracies Unraveling the Assassination of Malcolm X, which many folks consider to be the best research study of Malcolm's assassination. So we definitely want to have want you all to step on tomorrow at 11:30 right here live on BPM.
That's big because his ideas and his work has been imprisoned, and locked away.
without question.
Sorry, Kim, go ahead.
Yeah. No, just before you get into the stories, I just wanted to note that we have cracked the 200 mark for the live chat. So I assume the doctor of the ears is going to see us at the end of the hour, and I'm assuming he's stretching right now, getting ready for his end of the show mix. So thank you all.
Yep.
Thank you all
Digging
so
in them
much
crates.
Thank you for that end of the show mix. But I really do love that Jalil talked about things like the Compromise of 1877 and the connecting the struggle of colonized people to controlling our land, because it's like we talk about these things in history, we learn about the Compromise of 1877 in history, and it's just framed that way. And I actually did a monologue about it on By Any Means Necessary the other day, where they just say, oh, the Compromise of 1877 as this one little historical tidbit. But what they don't ever tell you was the compromise was that we were the compromise. We were the thing that was compromised about what the South would do in regard to how it treats the newly freed Black folks. We were literally the bargaining chip for two white people, one Democrat and one Republican, to agree on who would be president. We were the bargaining chip on that compromise. So that kind of stuff is really, really important when we're having these conversations about history in this country and everywhere else, and what it really means to where we are today. It wasn't just some, sanitized compromise of 1877. No, the Democrats literally said, okay, we'll recognize, or the Republicans literally said, okay, we'll recognize the Democrat as president, or however it went, and we'll let the South treat Black folks however it wants, and we won't interfere. That was the compromise. So when Republicans today talk about, oh, Democrats were the ones who were racist, and no, both.
Mm-hmm. Cracker's a cracker.
No, I fully disagree. There has been a complete and entire change because Jalil is now free. Biden is president. And as we see here,
Mr. Cola always shows up.
Hey, that 4%. And the three white men who murdered Arbery were found guilty of hate crimes. So America is fixed.
Hey,
because that judge was elected. That's what happened.
Speaking of that, today marks 2 years. It's the 2-year anniversary of his murder. So, it's great that particular verdict was handed down yesterday. But what's really going to happen, we don't know. But yes, 2 years ago today, he suffered his fate dealing with these three racist ass bastards.
What I love is that this becomes, this celebratory thing for national media, and Jared, of course, to talk about how America, just the court system works and the system works or whatever, and it's not like this is stopping the killing of Black people by police and or armed white vigilantes. It's not doing anything. This is an obvious case, again, that was caught on video, which was the only reason, again, that even the possibility of a conviction was had. These white folks told their story originally, and obviously, let's remember, no prosecution was going to happen to them. It was only until the family, the friends, other folks started organizing, video came out that they were forced to do something. And if it takes that much energy to get something done, we realize our situation has not changed. And, you know, speaking of what Jackie was talking about, we've always been the object of white people's decision-making power over us, you know, and we have to keep remembering that. That's our role here has always been subject to somebody else's whim. And until we gain power, that's really where we are in this country.
I heard some folks the other day talking about at least Kim Potter was convicted. She got she was sentenced to 2 years, but she won't even serve 2 years. First of all, it'd be 2/3 of her sentence, which would be 16 months. She has 58 days credit, which is 2 months. So for all practical purposes, Kim Potter will serve 1 year and 2 months. So she'll be out in a year and 2 months. So we're talking about what, 2024? You know what I mean? So right. You know, there's no victory there. She had she cried on the whole tears thing, and everybody fell for the bait, talking about she made a mistake. Look, like I pointed out in a previous episode, a taser weighs 8 ounces. That's about a cup. The pistol that she had weighed 33 ounces. So we're talking about the difference between a cup and a quart. If you are a supervisor in a supervisory position, or anyone in America, or anyone on the damn planet, if you can't tell the difference between an 8-ounce cup and a quart of something, then your ass don't need to be public at all. You need to go get your GED or some shit, because you fucking up.
I do think this is also pictured here as sort of an associated traumatic effect of all of this is the sort of re-legitimization of people like Crump and their role in all this as well. I'm not a fan of that either, but no, you are right. I don't think anyone who has ever held a loaded handgun could be confused or should be, particularly if that is your profession, about whether you're holding a gun or a taser. But I have to admit, after watching some of the trial and some of the footage that was released, I am actually surprised she got anything, because there seemed to be enough. I don't want to say evidence, but enough to work with for her defense to defend her from the behavior of Daunte Wright and his alleged attempt to flee, to her reaction immediately afterwards. You know, there was a lot for them to work with. So I'm even surprised that they I have to say that they got this much. Though I'm not, to Kalanji's point, surprised at the way her sentence will be carried out, and of course what its effect will be in this attempt to suggest that justice has been served or there's been some sort of advance on any level. So, you know,
I don't know, man. It's amazing what we have to deal with, but you know, that's how it is when you are in captivity. You know what I mean? Whatever rules and laws that the oppressor hands down, then that's what you're gonna have to deal with until you change that paradigm. And at this particular point, we're nowhere near changing that paradigm.
Well, again, going back to Jalil very quickly, I still remember him in the discussion of his initial trial where the judge discussed sentencing him as a prisoner of war, where they were acknowledging in a courtroom discussion where the judge is saying to something to the effect, if you want to see yourself in that way, that's how we're going to treat you. You know, the judge is sort of acknowledging, I have no problem addressing you as a prisoner of an ongoing war, and locking you up as such. And even when I was on that one visit I went to see him, he had, I think, just gotten out of some trouble for trying to continue to teach a Black Studies class. I think that was one of the, to your point, Kamal, about him not sort of being recalcitrant regarding his politics. That was, you know, he was like, I'm still, you know,
and they still try to keep him too. I mean, even what was that, Letitia Graham? What's the
that's right,
the attorney general name? I mean, she fought hard, and she's younger enough.
Yeah. Oh, I thought. Yeah, you're right. That's right. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I guess Graham came because she's a graham cracker. But anyway, yeah. So with her, I mean, even trying to force them, you know, trying to get the board to turn back on its heels, so to speak.
That's right.
You know, he had right before that, he had COVID. It was so many. So It was
there was some nonsense about him. I thought there was some nonsense about him they were trying to say he broke parole by trying to vote or register to vote.
Yeah, as soon as they let him out, they tried to basically reinstitute a way to capture him or get him back because they said he filled, which they gave him as part of his package when leaving prison, and saying that he filled it out and he wasn't eligible. And so therefore he committed a crime because he filled out the very paper that they gave him to fill out. So, yeah, I mean, I think on some of it seemed even so ridiculous. Again, when, it's not always the case, but I think there was enough, again, public pressure at that point, attorneys who were skilled in their field, that even something as silly as that could not necessarily hold him. But it doesn't mean, it doesn't mean based on the work that Jalil does and continues to do, that again, they won't try to find other means and mechanisms to re-imprison him, right? If they see the impact that he's having, if they turn a corner and it's like, wait a minute, that we cannot think for a second that we should just think that this somewhat victory of getting him released is somehow a final win in this struggle. The power of the state is real. So.
And thank you, Kalonji, for bringing up that point about Tish James. And please be sure to point that out to people in your life and in your community when they start getting excited. Oh, you see, Tish James, she about to indict Trump. Trump's about to go to jail. Remind them about what Tish James is trying to do to Jalil. And that goes for all Black prosecutors across the country. If you think that they're trying to do, quote unquote, good work, just look at the amount of people that they fight to keep behind the wall.
Yeah. I mean, all that.
Hey, listen, I know we're about to get out of here and we get that special ear doctor mix, but I do, and I know, this is almost as important as the news we've just been covering, but today, everybody, it's important to remember that the Champions League returns. So the best competition in sports, the champion.
Hey, don't play no more soccer on here, man. You remember we got.
I know. I just held up the screen.
Your little clip.
FIFA don't play.
The numbers dipping already. The numbers starting to dip. You mentioned soccer, and the numbers up. We're down to 100. We're down to 45 people watching.
Yeah, Jared's willing to take the whole channel just to talk about some soccer. Just take the whole thing down.
4%. That's part of the 4% cola deal. I sync channels to watch soccer.
Somebody just mentioned it. I know we're about to break out, but one of the few times I will dip in the chat that I think is it today? That's W.E.B. Du Bois's birthday. Was it yesterday?
I believe.
Oh wow! No, that's terrible. I missed Claudia Jones's birthday. I missed Du Bois's birthday. We missed Malcolm's commemorating the assassination day. Like it's just been a mess over here lately. So thanks to the chat for reminding us and keeping us up to date, and happy born date to all the good ones.
Yeah.
You know
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, Du Bois even talked about the people of Ukraine, and didn't he call them the pawned people, the people of the Ukraine and the Balkans?
Oh damn! I didn't remember that. Okay, I'm sure he did, but that's
these histories are long. Yeah, these are not sudden. Just because the media raises them for particular reasons. And apparently now again, in terms of the cycle of enemies, Russia, China, Iran, Russia's now number one again, and then in 3 weeks we'll be told China's our number one enemy, and we have to go to war against them. And then,
hey, don't forget, North Korea is testing out
always waiting,
testing out those long-range ballistic missiles. Anytime you hear about one of our so-called enemies, you will hear about the whole constellation in that same week. China, Iran, North Korea. You're going to hear about everybody.
Venezuela. You got to get Venezuela in that cycle.
Hey, and don't forget the standards still applicable all over the continent of Africa and beyond, in the so-called Middle East. That constant terrorist, they can drag that back out too. All the little terrorist groups running around. It's like they got a whole roster. Everybody should go watch Canadian Bacon, and a good 80s classic. Shout out to John Candy. Funny fat white dudes. It's a great movie that explains all this history. Create an enemy, start a war. Canadian Bacon, boy. You know what I'm saying? That's how we do it, BPM.
All right.
Speaking of enemies,
Canadian Bacon.
Oh shit! Simmer down, come out.
Oh my bad, sorry.
Y'all are not
I just thought
enemies.
that was a good segue.
Y'all are not.
He's an enemy of whack beats,
true,
and MCs and whackness. He is the enemy of that.
Okay. Who that is?
Who this? What's going on?
The doctor will see you now.
What is this?
Beaujolais.
This stuff can gag a maggot. What is it? Furniture polish?
No, it's French wine.
I'd rather have Ripple. Yeah, bring on the Ripple.
Where is the Ripple,
That's
nigga?
what
Where is
I'm
the
saying.
Ripple?
Bring on the ripple.
Trying to get all hot
This is
diddy and
Beaujolais.
bougie with these sisters. Get the ripple.
Hey, we talked about everything from nipples to ripple on the Remix Morning Show today.
Everything.
Like Beaujolais. That's the name of your wine.
It's French.
Hey, so let's go out. We're gonna mix it out and take y'all out, and we will see y'all tomorrow. So let's get it.
Yes,
Thanks,
good.
everybody. Peace.
Peace, everybody.
Black Cloud Media.
Last night a DJ saved my life. Last night a DJ saved my life. Yeah.
If you didn't want to be in here, I know you got soul. If you didn't want to be in here, I know you got soul. If you didn't want to shake that thing, I can make you dance.
Little bit of funk for y'all.
I'm on fire. Life has just begun. My only desire is to have myself some fun. I've got money, but nobody, no one to call my own. Been so lonely, I'm tired of being alone.
That's what it is right here on the Remix Morning Show. We check y'all out till morning. Peace. Remix.